machine has a great selection of stitches to choose from. Everything from essential stitches to stretch stitches for stretch fabric and even decorative stitches for embellishment. So let's see how to select stitches on your machine. To choose a stitch, you use your stitch selector dial. Each time you turn this dial, you can feel it click in place underneath this dot marking on the machine. So you'd find the stitch you want to sew and turn it until it lines up with that dot. But you'll notice that at each click of the dial, there are actually 2 stitches. So how do you know which one you're going to sew? Well, you actually use your stitch length dial to determine that. So to show you how this works, we're going to start first with the gray stitch. Your gray stitch in this setting, which is the multi-step zigzag. So we're going to come up here to the stitch length dial, and right now it's on a medium stitch length setting. I'm going to bring it down to about a 1 to bring those stitches closer together. On your stitch length dial, the smaller numbers are shorter or closer together stitches, and the larger numbers are longer stitches. And then I'm going to come over here to the stitch width dial and bring it from 0, which is no width at all, and it goes wider and wider and wider until it's at its widest setting, which is 5. So let's see what that looks like. Before you start sewing, make sure both of your threads are underneath the presser foot and out the back. And place your fabric underneath the presser foot, lower the presser foot, and step on the foot control to start sewing. End of the fabric, turn the hand wheel toward you to make sure the needle is in its highest position and just begins to come down. Raise the presser foot lifter, and then trim your threads. If you use a scissor to cut your threads, make sure you leave your thread tails long enough so that the needle doesn't come unthreaded the next time you start to sew. And there's our beautiful multi-step zigzag. It's great for decorative sewing. You can attach trims with it, even do elastic insertion. So now let's bring the stitch length dial to the number 4, which is the longest stitch length setting, and see how that changes the look of our multi-step zigzag. With both threads underneath the presser foot, place your fabric under the presser foot and lower the presser foot to start sewing. Turn the hand wheel toward you to raise the needle out of the fabric until the needle is in its highest position, just begins to lower. Raise the presser foot lifter and cut the thread. And here you can see the huge difference it makes with a stitch length setting at 1 or at 4. So just play with the stitch length and stitch width to make the stitch look the way you want for your project. Let's see how to select the honeycomb stitch from this setting. And to do that, we take the stitch length dial and continue turning it until I'm over here to this blue S. The S is for stretch stitches, and the S is blue, just like my honeycomb stitch is blue. So blue lines up with blue. And these stitches look great when they're at the 5 setting. So let's see what that looks like. Place your fabric under the foot and lower the presser foot to start sewing. Turn the hand wheel toward you to raise the needle up until it just begins to come down. Raise the presser foot lifter and cut the thread. And there's your beautiful honeycomb stitch. So each time you turn the dial, you'll see that there's a gray stitch and a blue stitch. So each time you turn it, the same thing applies. The gray stitches in the gray stitch length zone, or the blue stitches in the blue setting. And adjust your stitch length or stitch width depending on the look you want for your stitch for the project you're sewing. And if you'd like more information, just check out your manual on the Singer website.